Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
Yes, exactly. I often say, "Oh no, Mr. Bill, no," when I'm exhausted. Then as soon as I step onto the stage, I declare, "I marry Ruth, mother, I am having a great time." Geraldine Page missed her first Broadway performance in her career. That night, when her son found her deceased, he also learned at her apartment something else. 30 years of a sinister Hollywood conspiracy were exposed via hidden letters. Page had been placed on a blacklist for something much more personal than politics. When she eventually revealed the truth about what actually transpired and why she nearly quit acting altogether, her voice trembled. On November 22, 1924, Geraldine Page was born in Kirksville, Missouri. Her mother, Edna Page, and father, Dr. Leon Elwyn Page, were also osteopathic physicians. Pearl Mays Page maintained the stability and warmth of their house. Kirksville was a tiny community at the time, with less than 8,000 people. It was renowned for its medical school rather than for turning out future celebrities. However, even in that peaceful setting, Geraldine's early years were influenced by strict discipline, strong family values, and modest aspirations. Everyone's life became more difficult during the Great Depression. The Page family, however, was able to maintain stability. That small-town existence provided Geraldine carried with her a mixture of hope and strength. When she was 5 years old, her family packed up and relocated to Chicago in 1929. That action altered everything. Geraldine departed aside the tranquility of Kirksville and discovered herself among a vast, cacophonous metropolis teeming with art, music, and people from all over. Chicago was also having difficulties during the Great Depression. It was full of vitality. Nevertheless, the Page they resided in the working-class community of Englewood, where the arts were beginning to flourish. The universe of Geraldine grew significantly larger. She observed busy streets that opened, theaters, and museums. Her eyes to fresh aspirations. Acting wasn't one of those goals at first. Geraldine did to paint or play the piano. She practiced the piano for hours till her digits hurt. When she wasn't performing, she wrote in notebooks, waiter calls, and drawings. Her parents supported her. They thought that music and whatever she decided to do, art would support her. She didn't even consider acting, however. All of that practice with a piano and her paintbrush during those formative years taught her self-control and patience. She would go on to become a fantastic actress thanks to those lessons. Despite was still unaware of it. At the age of 17, she had her first taste of acting. In 1941, she appeared in the play Excuse on a little stage at Englewood Methodist Church. My Dust. It played a minor part. Although it wasn't a well-known play, Geraldine felt a sensation she had never experienced before. The enthusiasm of the crowd, the excitement of performance, and the strength of she was drawn to storytelling in a way that music and painting had never done. From that she realized she wanted to take action at that time. She had gained a new perspective from that tiny church. Stage. Dream. She received her diploma from Englewood High School in 1942. The educational institution was renowned for its robust academic and artistic offerings, both of which Geraldine had been actively involved in. She performed in plays, made art, and performed music. She was bound for big things outside of the Midwest, according to her teachers. But even though life was uncertain and the globe was at war, Geraldine clung to her dreams. She cast on New York and the Broadway stages. Following school, in the Summer Stock Theater, Geraldine threw herself between 1945 and 1950 throughout the Midwest at small theaters. It was laborious and unappreciated. She performed in 3 separate plays in a few different weeks. The theaters frequently collapsed and were chilly in the early spring and scorching in the summer. She spent the day practicing and tired out at night with little opportunity for food or rest. However, her abilities started to show through. Despite her moniker, Chicago reviewers began to take notice of her. Did and single quotes to rank highly on the playbills. She was examined over those years, but they also strengthened her. Geraldine took up odd jobs that sapped her energy in order to make ends meet. She worked as an usher at theaters, checked hats at smoke-filled clubs. As a store clerk, she folded clothes and even modeled lingerie, which is perceived as embarrassing back then. Her hands were raw from working in factories. In addition to keeping her going, these professions helped her to fully comprehend hardship. She would later apply that knowledge to give her characters more realism. Geraldine made the decision in 1950 bold decision to go to New York City. Other than her suitcase and a stack of rejection letters from unsuccessful audience, competition was intense, and the city was congested and nasty. She shared quarters with other prospective performers, lived in small apartments, and encountered one rejection after another. However, she preserved each letter of rejection as a reminder of her willpower. Even when no one else did, she had faith in herself. Someone else did. She received instruction from 2 of the best acting instructors in New York, Lee Strasberg and Uta Hagen at the time. She learned to follow her emotions from Uta Hagen. The truth. Additionally, Lee Strasberg taught her how to delve deeply into her soul for every part. Her craft was shaped by these teachers. Geraldine Page first appeared on the Square Theater's Modest Circle stage in Greenwich Village, in Tennessee. portrayed Elmer Weinmiller. Smoke and Williams Summer. What was so amazing about this moment was that simply the play had failed on Broadway for years prior, ending after just 102 performances. Performances, however, a miraculous thing happened. When Page showed up, her unfiltered, her incredibly moving performance astounded fans and journalists alike. The 356 performances were given, which is an amazing feat for an off-Broadway production. Back then, her name became associated with her acting, which many claimed was pure magic, a new era in American cinema. This was more than a one-off triumph. It helped start the off-Broadway trend, which opened up venues for thought-provoking serious plays outside of the typical Broadway setting. Her act created history in addition to receiving praise. Geraldine for her performance in a non-Broadway production. Page became the first actor to ever win the New York Drama Critics Award. At Broadway was thought to be the exclusive location for authentic theater at the time. Off-Broadway was viewed as a playground for amateurs and denigrated. However, Page's prize compelled individuals to view Broadway in a different way. All of a sudden there was outstanding art there might occur. Overnight this victory transformed Page's life. She signed a 7-year contract agreement with Charles K. Feldman, producer. More significantly, it made theater for respect to be earned by other performers and productions outside of Broadway. Page debuted on Broadway in Venus' play Midsummer in January 1953. Del Mare, the play didn't work out. It was short-lived and swiftly forgot, and Page's performance, however, was spectacular. Reviewers commended her depiction of Lily as an innocent and optimistic heroine. The New Yorker's Walcott Gibbs termed her portrayal may have been the most honorable woman to appear on stage in my generation, and claimed that in the hands of anyone else, the role would have been intolerable. Despite the play's failure, Page was evident her career continued to grow, and this debut was the beginning of she received 4 Tony nominations throughout her more than 3 decades on Broadway. However, her dreams of becoming a movie star were dashed as her stage career flourished. Following her Oscar, Geraldine Page's 1953 Hondo film debut, which was nominated, should have been a Hollywood's biggest star. Rather, she was placed on a blacklist. It wasn't due to anything she did or said, but because Uta Hagen was her teacher. Hagen was a left-leaning acting instructor who resisted working with the House Un-American Activities Committee. Just Hollywood studios ignored Page simply because they knew about Hagen. Public charges or proof were not required for the blacklist. It operated in silence. Heads of studios just ceased phoning, and casting lists no longer included Page's name. Nobody told her outright. No hearing was held, no opportunity to protect herself. Her career in film came to a halt. The Spanish Mental lasted from 1953 to 1961, 8 grueling years. Between the ages of 29 and 37, these were her career's peak years. Although while Kim Stanley and Joanne Woodward were establishing their film careers, Page was overlooked. Later, she claimed that during these years she felt invisible. It was a devastating loss. Not only in addition to missing out on work, she saw her peers' advancements, knowing she lacked the opportunity, but she had the talent. There was no written record of the band, so the harm extended beyond lost roles, and there was no way to contest it. Thus she lost her sense of value and industry belonging after being placed on the blacklist. The anxiety that supported the blacklist originated from government committees as well as inside Hollywood itself. Geraldine Page witnessed this firsthand. Ward Bond, a John Wayne's acquaintance and well-known actor, turned into a sort of enforcer. Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals was the organization Bond belonged to. Urged studios to terminate anybody he believed to be questionable and asked colleagues about their political views. His presence produced anxiety and tension on movie sets. This is where Page lived and worked, setting where a career could be destroyed by a thoughtless remark or the wrong friend. Though there was paranoia everywhere, private discussions might even be turned into proof that is against you. After being cut off from movies, Page went to Broadway, and her haven was the stage. From 1953 to 1961, she provided part of her best roles in plays such as The Rainmaker, The Immoralist, 1954, and 1959's Sweet Bird of Youth. She received accolades and recognition, yet she was aware that she was not eligible for the large, lucrative and well-known jobs in Hollywood. Some parts were available on television, however they lacked the security and impact of film. Nevertheless, Page declined to quit. She continued to perform, achieve success, and establish a reputable stage presence. Profession. She was unable to forget what she had lost, though each accomplishment served as a reminder to her that Hollywood ought to have included her as well. She was denied that position not because she was untalented but due to politics and fear. When Page eventually made a comeback to cinema in the summer, she was 37 when she met Smoke in 1961. The parts that may have turned her into a movie star disappeared. She had lost the years she should have spent establishing her cinematic career, but her skill, her tenacity, and she never lost her passion for acting. Geraldine Page astounded Broadway in 1959 with her iconic portrayal of Princess Consortia in the film Sweet Bird of Young People. Tennessee Williams wrote the play, and Elliott Kazan directed it. It became a sensation after opening at the Martin Beck Theatre on March 10, with 375 performances. It ran for more than a year. It was a great success at the moment for a brand new play. The distraught and waning Hollywood star was so compellingly portrayed by Page that she was nominated for her first Tony Award for Best Actress. She was lauded by critics' incredibly passionate and unvarnished performance. 3 Tony nominations were given to the play. Page, however, was the one who really stunned spectators. Her relationship with playing opposite her, Paul Newman, rose to fame. People continued to discuss the magic they produced on stage together. In 1962, when the play was made into a movie, Page performed the part once more. She received a Golden Globe and an Oscar nomination. She demonstrated that she was among the greatest at making Tennessee Williams' characters come to life. Why she was a princess, its secret inspiration was Cosmonopolis so real. Page used the based on the well-known silent film actor Norma Talmadge, who lived in the 1910s and 1920s, one of the greatest celebrities of her era. Talmadge had amassed up to $1 million annually. However, her career waned when sound was added to movies. The Page admired Talmadge's fragile character and kind disposition. Sheffield that these characteristics were essential to illustrating the princess's tragic tale. By using Talmadge's ascent and decline as inspiration, Page delivered a devastating intensity. Her performance served as a reminder of how ephemeral and transient stardom can be. People who pursue it frequently are. Tennessee Williams and Page's collaboration grew to be one of the most significant collaborations in American theater. When she portrayed Alma in 1952, it all began. Wine Miller in A Summer and Smoke Renaissance. Critics were forced to play that position. Take note, she received an Oscar nomination for the cinematic adaptation. Williams claimed to have never worked with an actress as dedicated and disciplined as she was. Between 1959 and 1963, his first pick for his most challenging and injured female characters was Page. She portrayed women with intense emotional wounds, regret and yearning. Williams approached her for guidance on his characters since he trusted her so much. Their bond evoked a few of the most poignant shows ever to grace the American stage. In the Page made yet another audacious move in the early 1960s with Rip Torn, who would subsequently marry her. The Stock Theatre Repertory Company was established by her. He positioned it outside of Chicago, close to Lake Zurich. It was more than simply plossing in plays. The goal was to establish an environment where performers could take chances and demanding full employment. For 4 seasons, they managed the business. Page was employed assiduously, providing her own funds when required, and working many jobs. To make young actors were given the opportunity to grow and flourish by the business. It additionally allowed Page to develop as an artist by experimenting with different parts and directing. This experience deepened her relationship with Tora and demonstrated their shared faith in the transformative potential of theater. The drama of Geraldine Page's personal life matched that of her acting. In 1954, at the age of 29, she wed renowned musician Alexander Schneider. Who at the time was 45. The 16-year age difference attracted a lot of attention in the New York's artistic circles. Schneider had already experienced traumatic events, such as escaping tetanus as a youngster. And emerging as a vital member of the Budapest String Quartet. On May 13, they were married in Tarrytown, New York, although they were not married. In 1957, only 3 years later, no one knew the whole story, but rumors circulated that their hectic artistic lives might have collided. The beginning of Page's turbulent, romantic life was that brief marriage. Even more people would notice her next marriage. On Geraldine married actor Rip Torn on September 8, 1963 in Arizona panel. To avoid the spotlight, they chose that isolated location, there during a Broadway production of Sweet Bird of Youth in 1959. Romance had begun. In the 1962 movie adaptation, they brought that chemistry to the screen. Torn was 6 years younger than Page, and the theater community soon took notice of their connection. They didn't simply found the sanctuary, shared the stage, and forged a life together. Workshop for theater. Among their 3 children was Angelica Page, who carried on her mother's legacy. Even the doorbell of their townhouse in New York said, Torn Page, a humorous yet appropriate symbol for their flaming alliance. They remained wed until despite their turbulent relationship. Page passed away in 1987. By the Fishers appeared in the early 1980s. Amy Wright had become the object of an affair with Rip Torn, a 19-year-old actress. In 1976 he met Wright at an off-Broadway Hamlet, in which she played Oilia and he played Hamlet. Before long, he was dividing his life between Amy and Geraldine. Everyone was aware. Wright even acknowledged afterwards. Both ladies expressed jealousy, albeit for different causes. Page, however, declined to divorce Torn in 1983. Together, Torn and Wright had a kid, but Page refused to back down. When Ash said, of course, Rip and I are still married, when a reporter inquired about it, our marriage has lasted for many years, we will remain married. Why all the commotion? Many were astonished by her resistance. People questioned whether she was motivated by pride, stability, need, or both. She never faltered though. The union remained unbroken until the very end. In 1977, one of the most peculiar incidents occurred. In fact, Page and Wright shared the stage and the drama The Stronger, which tells the story of two women who are imprisoned in silence. Battle. It was directed by Tor. The stress was sensed by everyone backstage. Later Wright stated Page only did it for the sake of being torn. Both women endured the production, with each scene fueled by their jealousy. It was a drama from real life taking place in front of the spectators. However, despite her personal suffering, Page's commitment to her career never wavered or exposed. The years 1953 to 1984 saw Geraldine Page created one of Hollywood's most amazing and tragic recordings. She was nominated for 7 Oscars without a own victory. Hondo was the first, followed in 1961 by Summer and Smoke. She received a nomination for Sweet Bird of Youth. In 1962, the trend persisted. You're a Big Boy, Pete and Tilly. In 1972, Interiors. In 1978, and presently in 1966 in Greenwich Village as Pope. In 1984, every role was entirely distinct, demonstrating her true breadth of talent. She portrayed weak characters such as Alma, fiery ones like Alexandra Delago in Sweet Bird, Ween Miller in Summer and Smoke Off Youth, as well as profoundly distressed individuals such as Eve in Interiors. However, regardless of how much whether it was the accolades from reviewers or the esteem from her peers, the Oscar kept falling out of her grasp. When she received her 6th nomination, her losing streak was a topic of constant conversation in Hollywood. She had now passed Thelma and Deborah Kerr, Ritter, both of whom received 6 nominations but failed to win. Geraldine was the initial woman to ever make it to 7 without winning. She was referred to by the media as the Susan Lucci of the O, likening her to the well-known soap opera star who keeps losing ear. Everyone seemed to be waiting to see, and the interest was tremendous. How long would this unfortunate run last? Geraldine even made a joke about it. She stated to People magazine, prior to the 1985 Oscars, that if she lost once again, if nothing else, she would be the champion of failure.